go. There we go. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, we are good to go. How is everybody doing this morning? How are the Freedom Family team? Anybody got any legacy wins? Any of our trust fund folks on here that are willing to go ahead and let yourself be known? Any folks that are not our clients that have any legacy wins, any trust fund wins, any family constitution wins? You guys want a family constitution workshop? Should we do that for you guys? We haven't done a family constitution workshop since around this time last year. It's time intensive, so it becomes difficult to schedule them sometimes depending on what's going on with the rest of the firm. Because I do them personally, I don't let anybody else run the workshops. So, yeah. All right. You noticed that, yeah. That someone new making it today. Yeah. It's basically milk. It's not coffee. We'll work with them. We'll work with them. We'll get them trained up. You guys see everything, huh? I don't even know what that is. Anyway, okay, yeah, sure. Where were you doing that at? I'll wait. I'll wait for your reply there. I'm a slow typer too. Cook Islands, yeah, yeah, yeah. So they're just expensive. They're like super, super duper expensive, and their rules are really good. They're set up for people who aren't seasoned. So if you're going to use a trust the wrong way, that's the right place to do it. We don't really use them because the value proposition isn't there, right? We don't mind like pricing something out at the higher level if the value proposition is there, but the value prop isn't there for most of our clients because our clients are creating generational wealth trusts or even asset protection trusts long before anything crazy happens. So folks that use that particular jurisdiction, normally something crazy has already happened. And in most jurisdictions, it would be a fraudulent conveyance, it's called, to open, the trust. But that jurisdiction will allow you to commit a fraudulent conveyance and still protect the things in the trust. The issue becomes that unless you're not in the jurisdiction anymore, also, judges will like lock you up for it. So it's a it's a measured it's a measured and calculated response typically to like a really bad situation. What you're trying to force to happen is you're trying to force a settlement because of how long it's going to take to enforce anything else on you. And as long as you're out of the jurisdiction when you do it and you have no plans on going back, it could work. But that's not, we don't have any clients that are in that situation, nor would we take on clients in that situation. So we don't deal with it too much. But good luck. Look looking to create a legacy for, is that supposed to be the next generations? I'm thinking that's what you meant to write. No, I get it. Definitely do I get it. Some people feel lost at first. It's actually really, really simple to set up the framework. It's the education that's more difficult. The hard part is making sure that the next generations can manage it. And that's done via education. However, what makes it the hard part is that a lot of the education is not active. It's passive education, right? And so because of that, they're dispositions that are transmitted from intentional founders to subconscious errors, quite frankly, right? So that makes it super duper hard. That part is hard. And most people don't get into that part. And that's why 70% of generational wealth families fail, after the first generation. And then of those that succeed, another 50% fail after the second generation. Typically, after the second generation, you're good. But that failure comes from lack of education. Yes, yes, even for the people who get the money right, because the money is the easiest part. There's nothing difficult about the money. The money is just compounding. When you're talking about generational wealth, it's just compounding, right? You saw a reel where a guy said no one becomes rich from compounding. That's interesting. That's a lie, but that's interesting. Yeah, definitely not true. Oh, you know what? You know what that person might be doing? We say this all the time as well. Your generational wealth plan has nothing to do with you, right? So the people who essentially are selfish, and they're thinking about only themselves and putting it in the guise of generational wealth, they fail 100% of the time. So if that guy was like, oh yeah, my generational wealth plan is that I'm going to get rich and then I'm going to leave all this money to the next generation, he's correct, because it'll take 67 years for the compounding to hit, right? Depending on how much you put in on the front end and what you do as far as making sure that there are additional payments, if any, because you don't have to do that, right? So if you put in, I don't know, $1,000, and that $1,000 is compounding at 8% or something like that, right? Then yeah, it's gonna take, before that $1,000 is anything close to like a decent amount of money, it's gonna take 60, 70 years. So you didn't start when you were a baby, right? You're probably 20, 25 years old when you started, right? So 60 plus 25, where are we at now? 70 plus 25, you know, 5 years short of 100, right? So yeah, that person is not going to get rich off of generational wealth plans, because it's not for you, it's for the generations. It's not a personal wealth plan. Your personal wealth plan is separate from your generational wealth plan, right? So yeah, if that's what that person is talking about, I don't know, I didn't see the reel that you're talking about, but if that's what they're talking about, then yeah, they're right, and it's because they're being selfish, right? Like, you don't have to do a generational wealth plan at all. You just live your damn life and do what you want to do. That's fine. But to say you're creating something for the next generation, but you want it to enrich you, your priorities are twisted, right? You got to separate selfishness from generational wealth. That's why the key factor and the key pillar in dynastic families is always stewardship, always, right? So if you can't be a steward of the next generation, then you're just not going to have that kind of family, and that's fine. It's not for everybody, right? But if you can be a good steward to the next generation, and you do care about your children and your children's children more than you care about yourself, then you might be someone who qualifies to build that kind of family. So yeah, the guy might be right. I don't know. What's the point? There's no point for you. Yep. If that's your question, what's the point? if you don't get rich, there's absolutely no point for you. You shouldn't do it. You don't care enough about your kids to do it, right? If the option is to make sure that your kids are financially free, and that every generation after you is financially free and has everything that they need and the tools at their disposal to win in this world, and your question is what's the point because you don't get rich, it's not for you. Just move along. Yeah, generational wealth is about people who care more about themselves. Every single large dynastic family that you know them of, whether it's Rockefeller, whether it's Kennedy, whether it's DuPont, whether it's Carnegie, every single one of those families, the first generation died broke. Every single one. So we know what their families are now, but the person who set it up died broke. They were selfless enough to make sure that their kids didn't die broke. So if that doesn't resonate with you, you're in the wrong place. The beautiful thing is we have more sophisticated methods now, right? So, we can utilize those methods in our personal plan and in our generational wealth plan, right? So that makes things a little bit easier for us in the modern age, but the mindset still has to be the same. Yeah, so I mean, typically what ends up happening is even with that change in modern financing and blah 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 blah. Typically, what ends up happening now with our clients is the founder is rich, becomes rich from those techniques, not necessarily wealthy, but they do set up generational wealth. So the next generation becomes wealthy. So by the time the next generation steps in, they're not just rich. The machine is creating more and more and more, whether they work or not, right? And so that's where the wealth kicks in. But so unlike the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Kennedys, the first generation doesn't have to die broke now because we have more sophisticated methods, of generating, income. So, but they typically die rich, not wealthy. And it's the second generation that gets that first hit of the wealth. So it's a very small percentage of people that will end up with wealth in their originating generation. Riches maybe, wealth not so much. Yeah, for us, we'll determine that a client is rich when their passive income exceeds their monthly burn rate. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Wealth would be when their lifetime income is generated passively by the trust. So if their lifetime burn rate is, I don't know, 25 million, let's say, then for every beneficiary of the trust in that lifetime, trust benefits an additional, or the trust generates an additional 25 million on top of the principal 25 million, right? It doesn't have to be 25 million. I'm just pulling a number out of my ass, but that's whatever your lifetime burn rate, the trust should provide the lifetime burn rate and then double that. And now we're talking wealth. So it could be $2,000 technically, right? So it could be any amount of money, but that's when we start looking at like, okay, there's wealth happening in this particular engine. No, no, that wouldn't count. If you're working, that doesn't count per any of our benchmarks. I said passive income. So we would consider a settler rich if their passive income exceeded their monthly burn rate. If they have a job, that doesn't matter. Right. Yep. Now you're getting it. Yep. That's why some of the folks will come over here on a bond ladder, because if they come over here on a bond ladder, then their passive income, which is the money from the bonds, will immediately exceed their monthly burn rate. So the day they arrive here, they're rich. Yeah, it's clicking through to you, huh? That's really one of the biggest kind of wealth hacks that a lot of our clients will engage in, is they'll do the relocation as a wealth hack, because as soon as they do the relocation, the monkey's off their back, right? They don't have to worry about money anymore, and so now they can actually focus on building wealth. So yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's a currency game, right? You'll take your currency to a place where it has greater buying power. So nothing has changed in the amount of currency that you have, but your buying power has changed. So the balance becomes, how do I maintain the lifestyle that I'm used to? Like, how do I make sure that I have the type of hospitals I want and the type of education that I want around, and like all of those things? That becomes the challenge, right? Because you could go to a tier three country where, there's nothing, and it's not going to be a happy life. Even though you have a shit ton of buying power, it's going to suck, right? So you got to find like a tier two country that's becoming tier one, where you get everything that you're leaving behind, and more buying power, and then you step directly into that range of, okay, shift from even lower class, right? But most people from middle class to, upper class immediately, and then start working whatever plan is in place to make sure that there's generational wealth moving forward. What if you circle back? I'm not sure what circle back means in that context, but if you're asking, do people deploy their wealth at their origin country? Yeah, yeah, it happens all the time. Like, we'll have people that'll move to Kenya from America, get the monkey off their back, not have to worry about money anymore, start executing, their generational wealth plans, and then that generational wealth plan be so successful, they turn around and like buy apartment and diversify some of their sources of generational wealth, and they buy them cash, right? Because just a different economy. So, yeah, there are people who go back and invest in the source country. There's very few that like return to the source country, because obviously the problems that were keeping them, from getting to that level in the first place exist in the source country. So there's very few that'll like head back to the source country, unless there's like some very, very specific like medical thing. And then maybe like we've seen like some veterans have like a very specific medical thing, but it's covered by the VA, and so they go back for that. But that's really it. In 12 years, I haven't seen, anybody but those folks do that. So, hmm. Oh, don't you lose something in the currency exchange? Is that what you're saying? In the forex, is that in the foreign exchange, right? When you go back, right, 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 right. So you do, but it doesn't necessarily matter. I'll give you an example, right? So, like for example, in February of last year, and it's actually February of every year, but the people bought into it in February of last year. Our bond ladder clients got what's called infrastructure bond, right? The infrastructure bonds return on investment rate was 18.4607%, right? So even with any kind of deviation in forex, they were still getting twice the return on investment that you would have gotten off the S&P 500. So even if they wanted to go ahead and send that back, that means that every like 3.8 years their money doubles. That's what that interest rate means. Right? So if you know the rule of 72, do the math. That means that under 4 years their money doubles. That means that if you put $100,000 in under 4 years, you get $200,000. That's what that interest rate means. If you have a 100% drip, right? If you're reinvesting everything and compounding, all right? So that's an incredible interest rate. So does it matter if you lose 2 points on forex if you're getting 20 points on return on investment, right? Right. So that's why they do it, right? Got to be careful. You got to be careful that you don't turn into somebody who like has a problem for every solution without even understanding the situation, because then you just sound negative. And if you train your brain to be that way, life isn't going to be cute for you. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, people they'll cash out their 401ks and just pay the penalty. You know what I mean? If you're in a situation where you're guaranteed to be getting, 18%, which again, like that bond isn't currently open, but at the time they had that guarantee. So if you're guaranteed to be getting 18.4607% annually, tax exempt, right? A lot of people were like, F the 401k, I'll pay the 10% penalty and get 18% ROI, right? But the people who are trained to find a problem with every solution were like, oh, what about the penalty? What about the early withdrawal penalty? You mean the 10% one for 18%? Like, can't you do math? But when your mind is stuck on always trying to find a problem for every solution, you miss opportunities. Oh yeah, tons of people. Yeah, 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 totally. There's even people who had access. There was, if you go back and you look at our stuff from back then, I'm pretty sure there's a TikTok or Facebook or something. But there were people who had access to Navy Fed, like that was their bank, and the exchange rate was what? There's a picture of it on our social media. I don't want to say the wrong. I want to say it was 7% though. So the interest rate was 7%, and then what ended up happening was they would take that loan at 7%. They dropped it into that infrastructure bond that's paying a guaranteed 18%, right? And they would let the bond pay off the loan. So they literally bought the bond for free because the bond was not only paying off the loan, it was putting a little extra in their pocket for, reinvestment elsewhere. So yeah, some pretty interesting stuff. But that only occurs to someone who's looking for solutions to problems, not someone who, you know, gets off by trying to poke holes in everything and looking for problems instead of solutions. So just got to train your mind the right way, and then you'll always have the answer. It'll just come to you if you train your mind to look at things in that light and in that way. Jumbo. Yep, there is. There probably isn't to you because you think that way. But there is actually always a solution. But since you think that not everything has a solution, right? And those who think that everything does have a solution, they're also right. Oh yeah, definitely. We had clients that made like 3 4 million dollars in 1 month when Trump did the tariffs. And everybody else was like, "Oh, how are you gonna make money now? Look at those tariffs that Trump just dropped on the entire world." Blah 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 blah. And the people who could see solutions instead of problems were like, "Oh, wait a minute! Isn't there something called AGOA? Doesn't AGOA state that any of those handmade goods or clothing goods coming out of African AGOA countries are tariff exempt? There's 140% tariff on China right now. Does that mean that my African t-shirts are finally cheaper than Chinese t-shirts? That I can take their business all of a sudden?" That's exactly what it means, right? So the people who were like, "Oh, let's go," and actually, invested in that, made a couple $1 million in a month or two because they trained their mind to see solutions instead of problems. While everybody was bitching on the internet about tariffs, they were undercutting the Chinese. Finally, had an opportunity to take over their business, and feed their vendors, and that's exactly what they did, right? So it's just a matter of how you think. You know, you can tell in a single conversation who has the right mindset to keep around you, and who doesn't. Who's always going to find the solutions to every problem, and who's going to find a problem for every solution. Just keep those people away from you. You know what I mean? Because it'll influence you whether you want it to or not. You don't want those people anywhere near you. Yeah, I don't argue with them. You're right. It won't work. Go see how that benefits your life. Yep, it won't work. Let's see how that improves your life. See ya. That's it. Yeah, I don't have time to argue. I don't have time to do any of that nonsense. You don't think it'll work? You're right. It won't. Goodbye. That's it. Can't let negativity invade your positivity. That's for damn sure. Don't even allow it. Don't even allow it. Especially it has no impact, no positive impact on your life. It'd be one thing if like something they were saying had some kind of positive impact on your life. It's not. It's always ego driven. It's always I know more than you. It's always that's not going to work because even though I've never accomplished anything in my own life, it's always bullshit. So why would you even entertain that? Now, if it's somebody who's somewhere you want to be, then that's different. If they're talking from experience and they have the life that you want, pay attention. But when it's some idiot in his mama's basement playing PlayStation who took a break to come on, social media and poo poo on everybody's, dream building, you got to look at the source. You know what I mean? So it's not worth it. It's not worth it to engage with them any further than like, yep, no problem. You're right. Have a great day. Yeah, no. So generational wealth. You definitely want to focus at the next generations, right? It's not going to assist you in any way, shape, or form, or it shouldn't, right? Now it can later in life, right? So you can do a generational wealth plan, and then by the time like you need assistance as like an elderly individual, it might be in a position to assist you, but that's definitely not the purpose of it. But people act like you could only do one thing, right? You can have your personal wealth plan and your generational wealth plan operating at the same time, especially if you understand compounding. So, if you understand compounding, your generational wealth plan can compound the entire time you're working on your personal wealth plan, right? That's what I did personally, right? So, you can have your generational wealth plan compounding, it'll never be enough money to take care of you. It starts slow and then it hits a break even point. That point is different for everybody because it depends on how much money you put in. But it hits a point where it hockey sticks and it just goes straight up. but it starts real slow, right? Because if you think about it, let's say you're getting 10%, right, on your compounding, but you start with $1, right? So now you're, you know, every year you're adding 10 cents and then a little bit more because now the principal is 110 instead of $1, right? So now it's a little bit more than 10 cents, every year. How long is it going to take for that dollar to become anything, right? But you'll get to a point where, you know, enough of that compounding has happened to where now, you know, that $1 has become $100, and then in the same amount of time that $100 becomes $1,000, and then in the same amount of time that $1,000 becomes $10,000, right? So there's a point where it's like, okay, it took me 300 years to get to $10,000 because I started with $1, right? But in the next 300 years, it'll be billions. It's not like, I got to 10,000, and so in 600 years now I'm going to be at 20,000. No, there's a point where the doubling takes it through the roof, right? And so it depends on what you start with, what that number is, and blah 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 blah. But all you need for that is time. Period. It's all you need for that, right? That which is why most of the settlers of the old families, they essentially died broke because there wasn't enough time for the money in that engine to help them in their lifetime, right? If you use a relatively normal amount of money, um, and you don't add anything else to it, you're talking 60 years, right? So if you put $1,000 or something to compound in a generational wealth trust, and that's all you put, no monthly payments, no nothing, you're looking at 60, 70 years before that $1,000 is a couple $100,000 where maybe it can do a little something, right? If you started with $10,000, then in the same 60 years, you might have millions. You should have millions, actually, right? Um, you know, if you had a bond ladder running, which means that it's paying into the trust every month for you, now you might be able to do it in 15 years. That's when things might actually help you like later in life. And depending on how young you are, like we had a couple that came in, very impressive couple, that were thinking about, generational wealth. They had just gotten married, um, and they had no kids. And they were young. It was like 20, the guy was like 26 or something like that. The girl was 22 or something like that. So they were young. Um, and they set up a solid generational wealth trust. So they dropped, you know, five figures. I can't remember exactly how much in there, but they dropped a decent amount in there, and then had a bond ladder attached, and they got that 18% bond that I was talking about because of when they did it. So they got a big boy bond in there that's tax exempt. There's two other tax exempt bonds in their ladder that's paying in every single month, into that trust. And so they still haven't decided to have the first baby yet, right? And so by the time that baby is 20, there's going to be, if they have the baby in the next 5 years, by the time the baby is 20, there's going to be $3.8 million in that trust. So that's a different situation. They're obviously still going to be alive. Most people are not that savvy. Like, they're not thinking about their future like that, right? And they're just stuck in whatever they're stuck in. So it's very rare that folks of that age come to us and set up that kind of plan, but they're freaking set, right? Like, they're set so well that they can name themselves beneficiaries of the trust, and be just fine, because they started out with enough money up front, right? So it just depends on what kind of capital you're putting in on the front end, but you shouldn't expect that it benefits you, right? Typically, it's not going to benefit you. It's going to benefit the next generation. Are those the only kind of people who can? No, that they just happen to be, their setup allowed them to benefit from it, right? or will allow them to benefit from it if they want to, right? Essentially, it's a capital issue, right? How much initial capital are you willing to invest in your family, in order to create that generational wealth loop, which is really what it is. Now, if your initial investment is significant, then yes, it can help you. And a lot of folks that the issue becomes when you do your generational wealth, planning. A lot of folks, the planning is highly impacted by where they live, right? So the planning is super impacted by where they live, right? The cost of living where they live, all of those things, right? So a lot of times what will end up happening is people will utilize a trust estate, right? So they'll do the generational wealth trust here and they'll create a trust estate around that has a physical location here, right? So it's ended up being like a country home type of situation, right? And so you have an actual house that's owned by the family and is like the family base, right? That's where the family reunions and stuff are going to happen and all of that. It's going to jump off from, and they do it that way. And then you kind of hack the system because when you do it like that, you end up in a situation where, okay, typically I wouldn't be able to benefit from my own generational wealth trust. But if I have the trust estate in a place that has a much lower cost of living, but I'm still getting the much higher return on investment. Those are the two factors: the lower cost of living, and then still a higher ROI, right? That than you would have gotten in your home, country. By those two factors combining, then that person can actually benefit, from the trust. It still shouldn't be a goal, right? But now there's an opportunity for that person to be able to benefit in their lifetime from that trust, and then their kids benefit and their grandkids benefit because you reduced the cost of living. So it's almost like doubling your paycheck, right? So if you're like, I'm, I'm paycheck to paycheck, even though I make good money, right? Like, let's say you make, half decent money. I don't know. You make $4,000 a month. Let's say you make $1,000 a week, 52,000 a year. You make okay money, right? Right? Better than the average, actually, right? If it just became $104,000, just boom, overnight, nothing else changed in your life, just that money, boom. You don't have to work harder. You might even have to work less. Maybe you get part time, you get 104,000 right off the bat. That's what's happening, right? That's what's happening when you're shifting from one territory to another, bringing the money from the old territory with you, right? And then creating a wealth loop that's paying you out at a higher percentage point than you would have gotten in your home country, or that you would have had access to in your home country, right? So like the rate of returns that Kenya is paying on bonds, some hedge funds are paying. You need a minimum $1 million to get in a hedge fund, right? So just because the percentages are there doesn't mean you have access to them, right? So that's what it's about as far as like people hacking it to where they could possibly benefit from it themselves. That's how they do that. Yeah, it just becomes a significant upfront investment, but then you're good, for the rest of your life. Sure, 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 sure. You can have some fluctuations in investing, but um, that really, really depends on you because you set point, right? Like our lowest point, so our clients are getting guaranteed passive income for a minimum of years, right? Our latest bond ladder clients, their lowest point is 15 years, right? That's just our bottom, right? Our basement is 10 years, right? But the ceiling is 30, right? You can't get longer than 30, and that's on the base. So that's on the guaranteed passive income of above 10%. Could be 18%, could be 15, could be 16, but above 10%. All right, so above S&P 500, and that's the time you have to figure it out. Right? So now you got 10, 15, 20, 25 years to figure it out. You should be diversifying, you should be getting into real estate. All those things should be happening over those 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So now some people don't do that. We've had clients that like only got X amount of years left to live, and they're like, "F it, I'm going to spend every dollar till I die and enjoy my life." And but the rest of this is set up in a generational wealth. So I'll be buried. I have money to bury myself, and it's going to keep compounding, and my kids are going to get married and are going to get money and all of that stuff. Blah 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 blah. So it just depends. Different strokes for different folks. You know what I mean? It just depends. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we've had two. We've had two of them that kind of planned their expiration. One, it was myeloma, and the other one was COPD. And so moving here helped with the COPD, so they could breathe better. So that was helpful. And the other one was really into like alternative medicines, and she said that the medicines available here on the I guess organic side or herbal side or whatever were helping with the cancer. So yeah, they both lasted longer than they were told they would last. It was one of those 6 months to live type of situations. They lasted like 5 years, and then their family inherited that structure that they set up. So there's passive income coming into the trust fund, and their heirs are beneficiaries. The lady, she never had any kids. Like she had focused on her career or something, but she didn't have any kids at all. So it went to her nieces and nephews. But you can give it to anybody. We have folks that their trust doesn't pay to their family at all. It pays to very specific, like kids with specific academic standards or specific artistic standards and stuff like that, where it becomes like an endowment for the arts or an endowment for STEM, and it pays people's way through like college and all of that, and doesn't do anything for their actual family at all. Typically, that comes from some kind of family trauma, though. But it happens. You know, you don't feel like your family deserves what you built because they didn't support you in the building of it, or whatever the case may be, and so you feel better setting it up that strangers who have proven themselves can get it instead. So yeah, there's so all sorts of ways that clients move forward. The standard thing is family, though. That's the standard build. Is my family is going to get this when I'm done. Hey, Milka.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Milka. No, that's the social media manager. That's not my wife. We have no. There's early morning team meetings, and now she's going to the office. Lily. Lily. Is Lily in there? Okay, yeah. Bring 2 bottles of water. Yeah. Shit. You know how hard this is? We better be having early morning team meetings. Yeah. No, legal's meeting will be soon. We do end of the month. Then we go look over everybody's stuff. Different people. The architect meeting is quarterly. We don't do like daily meetings with the architecture firm. Um, I'm going to have to go to the construction site today So we'll be meeting with the general contractors and all of that, but different groups have different frequencies. Yeah, yeah. Social media, it's like that. All right. Is there is there another one? Okay. Where's Lily? Hey, Lily, bring me 2 bottles of water, please. 2 bottles of water, please. But yeah. All right. Sometimes I think my voice carries more than it does. Thank you. Yeah. You must follow my personal account. I don't know. So the search for the new governess is still ongoing. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing, but that doesn't have a whole lot to do with this, I guess. Well, you know what? Kind of does. Kind of does. It's tough because we're building generational wealth. So yeah, actually, it kind of does. So what makes it tough is you have to find people that understand the the cultural transmission necessary to make generational wealth work. They got to understand the hard part of generational wealth, which is difficult because obviously, if they're engaged in generational wealth, they're probably not working as a governess, right? So then, the way it works is you find people who have studied it academically. So then you're finding so what you're looking for is someone with a master's degree in child psychology, who maybe did their master's thesis on the work of Pierre Bourdieu, right? And who understands what habitus is, right? Which is a sociology term, but it's the way in which you pass on the education that's necessary for generational wealth, right? So it's the hard part, right? It's why people can succeed all they want monetarily and they still won't establish real generational wealth, right? And so that's what makes the search for the new governess so difficult is to find that person, a person who's academically familiar with what we're doing, but obviously isn't physically familiar with it, or else they wouldn't be working in the field, right? So that's where things get a little funky. Yes, the last one had that. Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where like early success is actually harmful to you because then you're like, shit. Now you expect to just be able to like find another one, and it's not that easy. No, 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 no. She asked to start a business, and she wanted our help doing it, which we did. So it's not like she did anything wrong, got fired, or anything like that. She just wanted better. You know what I mean? Just wanted better, more control over her destiny, so on and so forth. Which is what everybody should want. Why would we stand in the way of that? Yeah, but it sucks to like replace her. Right. So yeah, no governess at the moment. There are nannies and maids, but no governess at the moment. Yes, that's the one that we took traveling. So like the one that went to Mauritius with us, the one that went to Seychelles with us, the one that went to China with us, like the staff that travels with us is the governess. Yes, she's the only one. No, that's me. No, we fly first class, she flies first class. We stay in the suite, she stays in the suite. Yeah. It's yeah. There's no because she's transmitting cultural capital to the child, right? So whatever the child's lifestyle is going to be, that's the lifestyle in which she has to transmit the capital, right? So you can't like we do see a lot of that. I don't think it's a governance situation because I don't even think most of these folks know what a governance is. But we do see a lot of like nanny situations where the nannies are treated like second class citizens. It doesn't make sense because they're not going to be able to transmit the cultural capital to your child that you need transmitted to your child in order to create the proper dispositions. But the other thing is they don't even know anything about that. Like everything I just said is Latin to most people. They don't have no clue what I'm talking about, right? Which is why our family never becomes an elite family, right? Because they don't understand the sociology behind it. So I guess for those people, it makes all the sense in the world. Like we brought in a new nanny, for example. Part of the new nanny's, resume was that they had taken care of like four children at the same time. Okay, fine, sounds right, whatever. But it turns out that the household that she was in, they were cool just throwing iPads in front of the four kids. So the kids sat there like vegetables all day in front of iPads, put the iPad down and screamed to eat, right? So you put the iPad back in front of them, right? And that was it. Like that was the nannying that was done, right? So that's obviously not gonna work for us. So it's just a different strokes for different folks. Those folks are completely cool with their kids sitting in front of screens all day, and they had four of them. So you don't like maybe the oldest one's like 7, and he's sitting there with an iPad all day, right? And the youngest one like 2, sitting there with an iPad all day, right? So it's just different strokes for different folks, different trajectories based on the different, you know, inheritances that you give your children, and most of those inheritances are not financial. And it's not as simple as that, right? They have to have the environment and the freedom within the environment to express themselves and express what it is that they're interacting with in that environment, right? And if you do that, then you see that they'll absorb, then you actually see how much of their environment they absorb, right? Like we were in China for 1 month, and my son has like a 7 or 8 word Chinese word vocabulary, and he uses the words properly, right? But he wasn't being pulled around in China, right? And he barely spoke. He barely could speak at the time, right? But he wasn't being just yanked around in China, right? His governess was there and asking him about everything that he was engaging with and letting him, you know, describe whatever it was he wanted to describe in whatever way he could, right? So that's part of it also. So he was talking to Chinese people and, babbling to them, and, they were speaking Chinese back to him. Neither one could understand each other in any kind of real way, but he actually absorbed enough of that he started understanding. Oh, ni hao is hello. Do sao qian is how much is that? Like, or give me money, because he'll put out or he'll go in the wallet, do sao qian, and then start looking at the money. So he's picking it up because he had the freedom to experience it. So it's not just about, having some kind of educational program in place. A lot of it becomes how you're interacting and how you're interacting with the child and how you're allowing the child to interact with their environment and what environments are you providing for those kids. If I was still in the United States, there's no way I would have been able to like leave my job for a month and go dance around China with my son for him to get a cultural experience, right? So again, part of the wealth hack becomes the relocation. You relocate, now your money doubles, triples, whatever, right? And your buying power of it does the same. And now all of a sudden you're able to start implementing almost this old money style of sociology that grants your children access to things that they wouldn't have had access to before. So again, it all boils down to how much do you care about the next generation? Do you care about your kids enough to do that? If not, which is perfectly fine, to each their own, but if not, then it doesn't even make sense to proceed, you know? Right, that's only generational wealth. You know, not all of our clients are generational wealth clients. Some of our clients are just relocatees, which is fine. Like I said, different strokes for different folks. There's no better way or worse way or anything like that. There's just our way. Like we have a way, you know what I mean? There are other people who also believe in our way, and that's it. All right, I think TikTok's about to ask me to solve a puzzle. I was told the other day that it doesn't actually pause the live when I'm answering this puzzle. So that's cool. I thought it did. I used to like stop during the live and solve the puzzle and think that it was paused. But on my end, it looks like it's paused. But I've been told that that doesn't actually happen. So thanks for the live, or for the likes rather. Oh, that might be why it makes me do the puzzle, huh? So when I do the puzzle, you guys start tapping the live. All right, that makes sense actually. I don't really pay attention to the likes and all of that stuff. I just give you guys some access. That's all this is really about, is to give you guys some access, you know, to information. Well, like I said, it's been a bit much, so we probably it probably won't be these type of lives soon. What'll end up happening is there'll be like a show, and then you know there'll be little pieces of the show that'll end up on TikTok and stuff like that. Hey Knox, how you feeling, man? You all right? Uh oh. Some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community experience. Ooh. So yeah, if you asked me some weird question and I didn't answer you, I didn't see it because TikTok didn't like the way you asked it. So ask it a different way. Recovering, my man. I hear you. That's pretty crazy, bro. Out of nowhere. You never know, huh? You never know. Or was that you? Was it Nyalak? Yeah, just figure out a different way to. I don't even know what you asked, but TikTok blocked it. Yeah, man, that was nuts. So it was just pneumonia. You just went in for pneumonia. Jesus, man. I tell you what, though, I don't know how. I know you're outside the U.S. just like me. I don't know how true this is where you are, but I feel like a lot of this that that I've dealt with, that I survived in the medical system, I would not have survived in the U.S. medical system. Like that would have been my last day had I still been in Philly. I don't know if it's like that where you're at, but the medical definitely seems to be a bit better here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had a situation with our son. We had like an emergency. We had to do an emergency C-section, but the you know the thing that prompted the emergency C-section, we're calling back to doctors in Philly and like explaining to them what's going on and all of that stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, your kid's gonna have asthma forever. They're not this, they're not that. Blah 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 blah. Man, these doctors out here in Kenya, they flew in genetic specialists. They took the not the cord blood. They took the amniotic fluid and they separated the mother's stem cells from the baby's stem cells, and then they did treatment testing on the stem cells to see which one the baby's cells, took to the most, and which ones the mother's cells took to the most, and all of that stuff, and came up with, some customized, version of treatment that only took like 8 hours, and it was like, my son's perfect, and he was premature. They basically grew him inside of her in a couple hours, and then did the emergency C-section. He came out fully developed lungs, fully all of that. So he's taller even than kids his age, and he's premature. You know, and it got to the point where the place is called the Naval Yard in Philly. There's a hospital there called the Naval Yard. It's I can't remember the name of the super hospital above it. But anyway, the Yard hospitals were like calling, the doctors at the Naval Yard Hospital were like calling, like they wanted to know what happened. They started talking to the local doctors out here. Jefferson, that's what it's called. Jefferson Health. So it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild to see how that worked out. And yeah, man, I seen that. I seen you had some, you had decent medical over there. You're in Germany, right? I see you had some decent stuff going on over there on the level of like what we get over here. Now granted, it's, you got to be in a private hospital over here, and all of that. But way, all of that. First of all of that happened, and I'm like, I'm bankrupt. This is medical bank. I don't care. I just need my son and my wife to be alive, but I'm bankrupt. Like, y'all done flew in a geneticist, y'all done made, designer drugs on the spot. Like, it's over for me, And that thing cost me, what was it? I want to say it was 150,000 in local currency, which means it was like maybe $2,000 total. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, is the first payment $2,000? What do you mean? Like, that was everything. That was the total price of doing that. So yeah, really, really wild. Yeah, there are better ways, huh, Knox? But I'm happy you're doing better. I'm happy they caught what they caught, man. I don't want to be at home and that happened, and then what? You know what I mean? So I'm happy you're on the mend, brother. Had to be scary for the wife, man. And you just had a baby too, right? How old's your youngest? Mine's 22 months. Is yours a bit older than that? Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk soon, man. Recover quickly. 14 months. All right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, man, recover quickly. We'll talk again soon. Sorry, guys, I digressed a bit there, but um, you know, sometimes it's important to speak to good people, especially when they're recovering. So, all right, so I'm back to you guys. It has been an hour that I've been live. And this is right around the time where I start saying, do y'all got any more questions? If not, then I'm done here. Right? So that's where we are. If you guys have any more questions, go ahead and hit me up with those questions. I will answer them. If not, then I'm going to take my son to the beach. Actually, I have to go to the construction site today. Actually, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take him to the construction site. He can play with the dogs, and I can deal with the general contractor. Looks like we're good. Looks like there are no additional questions. I didn't see whatever question got blocked by TikTok. I doesn't look like anyone like reposted the question. Maybe somebody just said something ridiculous. So are we good on YouTube? No questions on YouTube side. It looks like we're all the way good, guys. All right, so I will be here tomorrow, same time, same place, probably talking about something similar. But this week might be the last week. At least, let me think. Yeah, it might be. This week might be the last week. We might start doing the shows next week, and then you'll just get snippets of the shows, right? So, and then you guys on the YouTube side, you'll get premieres. I don't know if it'll be live. I doubt it. So you guys will just get premieres, and then the shows will just have one topic point, not like this question and answer where you can kind of ask me anything and I'll just answer it. So that'll be that. TikTok, you may get live notifications, but it'll be like a behind the scenes type of thing where you'll be live while we're taping the show, which means I'm not going to be answering your questions because I'm going to be engaged with the show. So that's the way we're going to start doing that. So yeah, tomorrow might be the last time to get me to answer anything live. So we shall see. But thanks for hanging out with me, guys, and I will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place.